guys, good to see you again. Table over here for you. Hi, I'm Jim, owner of the barn on Linden Avenue, Zanesville. It's football season, so if you're rooting for your favorite pro, college, or local teams, my team has made the barn your destination for sports, dining, and entertainment pleasure since 1970. Watch the games on our big screen TVs. Choose from one of the area's best menus, enjoy our local daily entertainment, and come down and check out our expanded patio.
The barn is the place everybody knows and where everybody goes.
Hi, welcome to the Recovery Rocks podcast with yours truly, Paul Quinn. We're here at the Collab Productions studio on Linden Avenue in Zanesville. And I want to thank Drew and Jesse for producing the show. And if you are interested in hosting a podcast, contact the crew here and they'll get you set up. Or for that matter, on location audio production or studio recording and DJ services, they do it all here. But and thank you to the barn for being a sponsor. But as I say, we're talking about recovery from addiction, from mental illness, associated issues. And today we have a guest, and welcome Sheriff Lutz to the program.
Paul, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
You have a tough job.
One would say that, yeah. I think my people on the street have it a little tougher than actually I do. But law enforcement in general is a little tougher these days.
Did you always know you wanted to go into law enforcement?
Wow, great question. I would say no. To start with, of course, you know, my father was in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And so when I graduated high school, really didn't know what I was going to do. My mom started me at 4 years old because there was a group of kids that I wanted to go to school with. And never really had any trouble academically, but I graduated when I was 17 in May, and had to wait till I turned 18 in September. And my dad kind of suggested the police academy because it was right here in Zanesville, and so I actually went to the police academy and started working at Sears when it was out to mall in security, and worked down at the Zanesville prosecutor's office with Tom Bopley, who has passed away since then. But really learned a little bit about how to talk to people and take complaints when working for him, and just kind of went back to school at the Zane State, and Sheriff Gibson hired me, and I kind of just took off from there. Of course, Dad was killed in '94, and had a kind of decision if I wanted to stay in it, but decided to, and obviously got elected sheriff in 08, 09, and it's been 35 years in March since I've been doing it.
So seeing your father up close working in the profession was not a deterrent, or did that make it more attractive?
Oh, I think at that time it made it more attractive. You know, I was a volunteer fireman as well. Okay. Started at 16. So, you know, my mom ran with a squad at Harrison Township. So I think that sense of serving, that purpose of serving was always there. It's kind of born into it. Mm-hmm. And you know, of course, seeing my father work, you know, I got hired in '89, so I worked with him for 5 years, and just learning the ropes. And at that time, the sheriff's office was a lot smaller, so you kind of knew everybody's family a little bit. And so I think it was just that sense of serving the community, and just being able to get up every day and try to make a difference in keeping our community safe. I think that weighed a lot on it.
Now, there's a scholarship in your father's name, right?
Yeah. So when my mom passed away there in March, we put it out there for anybody that wanted to donate, could put it to his scholarship at Zane State. It's sent several people to the police academy and also to the 2-year associate's degree program at Zane State. So it's the Lieutenant Mike Lutz scholarship, and it's been out there since it was formed around 95, 96 in his memory.
And it covers tuition?
Yeah, it can be used towards tuition, you know, and then like I said, with the police academy out there as well, you can use it towards going through and completing the academy.
And my awareness of that was one of the things that prompted me to start actually it's turned into a memorial fund in my son's name, Andy Quinn Memorial Fund.
Yeah.
Now we're paying for the ammunition that the cadets use.
Yeah, awesome. And you know, having those scholarships, it's just it's a great way to keep your loved one in memory, and to you know, pay tribute to them, and then plus you're, you know, really making a difference in young people's lives by giving them the opportunity that they sometimes wouldn't have.
Yeah, it takes a special breed to be in law enforcement. I mean, what qualities would you look for?
Yeah, so it's really interesting you bring that up, because next Monday, or this coming Monday, the 8th, we actually have a graduation ceremony for this latest class. Mm-hmm. We have, I think, 5 that came from that academy. And so I'm going to do a little bit of a video tribute to them because I can't make it Monday night. But it's truly amazing right now for anybody to take on the task of going into law enforcement. The old saying, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And it certainly isn't easy in today's times. And so our old academy classes used to be 25 to 30. I think this class was around 15. And so the classes have dwindled down. I think you see a lot of stuff on social media now where law enforcement doesn't maybe get the necessary respect that it deserves for what they do. And so I think anybody that takes on that task and that challenge of serving the community and being in law enforcement, it's a true honor to them, and we owe them a huge appreciation for doing that.
And my understanding is the academy has gone from usually a full-time situation to a part-time, that people are working other jobs during the day or whatever and then going to school.
Yeah, so it's always kind of been, there's two different academies you can go to. The one out here at Zane State is a part-time class. You go like 5 to 9 in the evenings and you go all day on Saturday. You can go full-time and get it done in half the time, but a lot of people have jobs. We actually can have 3 corrections officers working for us and then can go to the academy at one time. So it is beneficial to them. They're getting paid, they're getting a paycheck, they got their foot in the door, they're getting valuable experience at work, and it's kind of transferring over to the academy. And you asked me what we're looking for. Anymore, we're just looking for the dedication to show up for work. I think we can teach you all the aspects of the job about what's going on the street, but we need hard workers. We need people that are dedicated to come to work. To get in this profession, you know that you're working weekends. You know that you're working the holidays. You're working 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Most of the stuff at our office is done by seniority, so the older folks get those weekends off and better hours. And so, it's hard to take a 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kid and say, hey, for the next 7 to 10 years, you're going to work Saturday and Sunday, and you're going to work 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., and that really plays a part of against their social life.
You really got to want it.
And they, you really got to want it. And so we want people that they have accountability, they take accountability, they have respect for people, have respect for themselves. They want to treat people like they want to be treated, and they want to come to work, and they want to do their part to serve the community and help make our community a safe place.
I think the core value that you need from an officer, I gather, is just wanting to help people.
Yeah, I think that purpose to serve, there's a sense there that, if you're in it just for a paycheck, you're probably not in the right position because you're not going to get rich from it. It's a very gratifying job. It's a tough job because of what you see in it, and you take it back to your family. But it's a very gratifying when you're able to go out on a shift and you're able to help somebody, no matter how big or small. I tell people all the time, our deputies probably look for their ink pen to go to work more than they look for their gun. I mean, just living where we do, it's not like you're drawing your gun every day, but you're using your ink pen every day. And so it's more about that communication aspect and realizing that if you go out and you talk to Mrs. Smith, whose cat's up a tree, and you get her cat down, that might be her only interaction with law enforcement. And how you handle that is how she's going to perceive law enforcement. And we handle a lot of those, non-emergency type calls that really that's the only interaction people have with law enforcement, and you have to handle that just as good as you do that bank robbery or that homicide.
It's a sad statement, but I feel like officers anymore oftentimes are a target just when they put on the uniform, and some people look at them as not as their friend, but as a foe, and it's
and I think you're right. I think and some of that we've brought on ourselves as law enforcement in some of these communities that you see on social media. We're not immune to stupidity. And just like you would have in any other profession, you're going to have that person that does something that they shouldn't be doing, and that brings a discredit on to all of us. But I think with everything, you need to evaluate and kind of look at the person you're dealing with, look at your agency that you work, you're in that community, and see how they treat you and how they treat the public. We're all going to make mistakes, but it's about, as we've talked about, the character is about not what the mistake is, it's about what you do after the mistake. Mm-hmm. And so it's very tough in some situations. You get lumped with all law enforcement, and people kind of take that persona on. Sometimes, we have we don't solve a case for somebody, so they kind of take that and are a little bit bitter about it. We can't solve all of them, but I can tell you that we all try to work hard at what we're doing, and we try to solve every case we get, and we definitely try to spend as much time as we can solving that. So it is a difficult task because we can't make everybody happy, and so you try to go out and do what's best for the agency, what's best for the community, and try to do the best you can.
Of course, there could be problems that were festered for years, and then one of your officers get called, and they're supposed to resolve this situation that maybe has been escalating over a long period of time, and they're supposed to fix it in an instant.
Yeah, and we do a lot of that with, talking about property line disputes. Is a really common one that we go out and people have been fighting over it for years, and they expect something to happen that day. We get situations where brothers and sisters had bad dealings, or parents had bad dealings, and now these folks have a bad opinion of law enforcement because of the way something else was handled. So a lot of that really comes up almost every day, and you have to be pretty good about your job, your communication skills, and trying to de-escalate some of that stuff to try to get through it.
Are you able to give some sense of, as far as the kinds of calls you get, how much is for property line disputes, or things I would call, I don't know, almost trivial?
Yeah, I wouldn't have the numbers here today, but
just a rough idea.
Yeah, property crime is probably our most responding call as far as what we respond to. Anything from criminal damaging, property damage, stolen cars, shoplifting, just any kind of property crime where somebody, a private property owner, has had damage to their property or has a theft. That's probably the biggest thing that we deal with. Disputes are right there with that, either through domestic disputes or family disputes, property line disputes, disputes over property. A lot of times we spend a lot of time with civil disputes because they don't cross over into a criminal nature, but we still get that call and have to go out and explain to them, hey, there's no criminal law been broken. You can file a lawsuit or do something civilly. So there's a lot of stuff we spend time with on that, probably more so than we do the stuff you see on TV. And so, of course, our drug unit spends all their time drug enforcement, so we always have something to do with that in today's times. And so those are probably some of the more common things that we do.
I often hear that there's been an escalating number of calls for drug overdoses.
Yeah, so we just did a release yesterday. I don't know if it's actually been put out into the news media, but here several years back, when the overdoses really started becoming a little bit more prevalent, we kind of looked at it and said, hey, we need to start trying to solve how these people are getting drugs and who's responsible for them to get the drugs. And obviously, there's back and forth there with different people, different opinions about somebody that overdoses, that sometimes the perception of the public is that person took the drugs, it's on them. And we recognize that part of it, and I'm sure we'll get into why that person's taking the drugs, but there's also somebody out there that's pushing it, and there's also somebody out there that's selling it. And whether they're trafficking and somebody doesn't die from an overdose, or whether they do sell it and somebody dies from an overdose, we want to take that person off the street. And so with our overdoses, we have really started putting in the hours and the effort to try to go back on those people that are dealing the drugs, that are delivering those drugs. And just like yesterday, we had a case in February. A young man went into a bathroom at a local gas station, overdosed in the bathroom, transported to the hospital, died from that overdose. And we've been spending time since February collecting evidence, evaluating evidence, processing evidence, and here recently we were able to get the suspect interviewed, and we were able to get indictments and against 2 people, and we locked them up. And so those are the types of cases. This is probably between 5 and 10 now that we've done. And again, we can't do all of them. It's a very hard case to investigate because people using drugs, as you well know, the people that you talk to, people with addiction issues want to be keeping that quiet. They don't make it publicly known. They disguise those people in their phones on who they're talking to, trying to hide it from the family, trying to hide it from the public. So it makes follow-up very difficult sometimes to do, and we can't solve all of those, but we have some very good people that work with some very good agencies, and we do some great things when they're trying to get to the bottom of that and try to bring some closure for the victim's family.
Well, it's become so widespread. I mean, it used to be that there was a certain, or I could be stereotyping. My perception is, used to be there was a kind of a class of people that would use, say, heroin, but anymore, you don't know. The person sitting next to you might fall out overdosing from heroin. And I know it's only a matter of time before that's going to happen to me. And it's like we all should carry around some Narcan or something. I mean, it seems like it's become that prevalent, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, I think it's become that prevalent, and I think that's the reason why we started carrying Narcan with our officers. Sometimes the opinion is carrying Narcan, you're enabling the drug use. Okay, for us, the reason I made the decision for our officers to carry it, because I've been to several seminars and I've seen folks that get up and talk that took the second chance and made something with their life, became another important factor in our community, and so we do carry the Narcan because sometimes folks are still using drugs, but their intent is not to kill themselves, and so that's why we started carrying it. As far as I probably stereotyped to myself because I worked the drug unit from 2000 to 2003. I was in charge of it from 2004 to 2006. And there was a certain group of people that used this drug, and a certain group of people that used that drug more prevalently. And so now fentanyl in our community has really kind of taken over. Even if you're using the heroin or cocaine or even marijuana, it's sometimes laced with fentanyl. So we run into a lot of those things all the time. We've dealt with the folks that seem to go into recovery and then relapse, or they go to jail, and then when they get out, and then are using the same amount before, and so their body can't take it, and that sends, that's the way it's been explained to me. I'm no doctor, but
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
As well.
So dealing with all that makes it just that much tougher on all of our people and all the families, and so again, we're out there trying to solve these cases to bring closure to the family. But but then also too, we want to take those people off the street so that they're not selling to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, I think probably most, if not all, drug users are really probably self-medicating for an underlying mental issue. Again, neither one of us is doctors or experts in that, but that'd be my perception. Is they're trying to quiet their brain, whatever's going on there, and we were talking about before we started here about I had preconceived ideas about who uses and why they use, and I'm realizing I don't know. I mentioned to you, I had a gentleman sit here and tell me the only time he can think straight is when he's on heroin. I mean, that blew my mind, but so I'm not sure. We're still not fully recognizing why people are using, I think, and it's...
Yeah, and that even puts it even worse for us because we really don't have any idea either. And the issue for us sometimes, and I'm sure we'll get into the crisis intervention training, but a lot of times when our guys get out of a cruiser and they walk up to somebody, it's not uncommon for us to see somebody that just wants to be belligerent and wants to be aggressive against law enforcement. So it's a very difficult task to know whether that guy's in the right frame of mind, not addictions, issues, but just wants to be aggressive towards us, versus walking up to somebody that, as you say, might be over-medicated, might have some problems one way or the other with mental health or addiction, and now they're just acting out because that's just what their brain's telling them to do. And so that makes it even harder for us to decipher where those things are at. So you really never know when you're getting out of the cruiser what you're going to be faced with, And those domestic violence cases, those dispute cases sometimes are the worst because you just never know how it's going to be when you get there. And so, as I said, the crisis intervention training that we implemented several years back has really helped try to give some clues, some hints, some training to our people to try to recognize some of that stuff.
Yeah, talk more about that. And you're kind of in charge of that training locally, right?
Yeah, so we have several partners that we've worked with in that, and you've been part of that. And we put on a 40-hour week-long academy, a CIT academy, every year. It's usually in October. And we open that up to all the village police departments in our county, as well as sheriff's offices and police departments in neighboring counties. And we have traditionally been around 25 to 30 people in that class. And we bring in experts from the county, from surrounding counties. We have an officer that was involved in an officer-involved shooting from my office that comes in and talks to all the recruits, all the officers, and as I say, even the Quinn family has been part of coming in and talking about how this affects families and how it affects people. And so, we've just come to that point where any kind of training that we can give our officers to help differentiate between aggressive, behavior versus something that somebody's got an issue, then that's what we're trying to do. And it seems to have worked a lot. We also try to bring people in and talk about experiences they've had and just trying to differentiate that and giving our people as much as they can get to go out and successfully come to a resolution in a case without hurting somebody, and doing something that we normally wouldn't do.
Yeah, the emphasis in that CIT training is to de-escalate situations so that it's a peaceful resolution.
Yeah, as I said, one of the best things an officer can have is people skills. And, an officer can get out of a cruiser and can say the wrong thing, and you can automatically get into a fight with somebody. An officer can get out of the car and say the right thing and talk somebody down and come to a peaceful resolution where the officer's not getting hurt and that person's not getting hurt and they're getting the help they need. Or if it's not any of those things, then they're taking care of the situation. So it really helps give them de-escalation tactics.
Hey guys, good to see you again. Table over here for you. Hi, I'm Jim, owner of the barn on Linden Avenue, Zanesville. It's football season, so if you're rooting for your favorite pro, college, or local teams, my team has made the barn your destination for sports, dining, and entertainment pleasure since 1970. Watch the games on our big screen TVs, choose from one of the area's best menus, enjoy our local daily entertainment, and come down and check out our expanded patio.
The barn is the place everybody knows and where everybody goes.
A lot of the talk in the CIT training is about looking beneath the immediate problem to see what put that person in this situation.
Yeah, and we look at that almost every call because we're trying to find all the facts and circumstances that's involving that, what we call in law enforcement the totality of the circumstances. So when you're trying to make your decision on what's going to happen with that person, we want to find all the facts and circumstances we can to come to an idea of why they're doing it, what they did, and how we're going to resolve it. And so, the crisis intervention training helps with that. Our investigative stuff, the more seasons you get as an investigator, as a patrolman, you have the idea to be able to ask those questions and try to find those answers.
In some cases, it might be best to refer someone to some sort of treatment rather than into the legal system.
Yeah, and we've talked about that too. When you brought up about the mental health and the addiction, we've heard that phrase dual diagnosis for a long time, and we know folks have both, and so obviously finding that description of what's going on, trying to define what they're going through, kind of gives us, an idea of what path we need to go down. We work very closely with Genesis Hospital. They have a 3-day holding facility up there, and we can take folks up there for mental health issues. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit. If this new jail becomes fruition, we do have a section in that would help with addiction and mental health issues of the prisoners that we have to take. But I agree with you 110%. Trying to define why somebody does something when we're dealing with them is a huge part of it. And then, getting that relationship with that person to where we can find what path. And again, it's a tough road sometimes, because those folks don't want to admit sometimes they've got an issue, and they don't want to go voluntarily along with what we want to do sometimes. And at that point, we're trying to make the best decision for them, for their family, and for the community.
And the thing is, if they end up in jail or prison, I mean, that doesn't cure their addiction. But sometimes people need to bottom out to get serious about their recovery. And sometimes I think maybe that's the primary value of incarceration, is it makes them realize, first makes them get sober, and makes them realize maybe they need to change some things.
Yeah, and I think so too. And I think, we've always heard, that you sometimes you got to hit rock bottom to come back up. And, and again, jails and prisons are not privy to being drug free sometimes. We've had overdoses in our jail. People smuggle it in because they're so addicted they think they can't go in there without it. Those issues are always going to be there. We try to combat that every day. But you are right. Sometimes folks won't admit it to us. They don't want to admit that until they finally do hit the bottom. And then we're very fortunate in this county. I think we have a lot of outpatient services that are out there if folks want to go to it. But they've got to want to get that help to go to it.
Yeah. Willpower is just, for most people, is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
They have to have a plan for their recovery.
Yeah.
Do you have an approximate number of people who have been through that CIT training?
I do not.
I know several hundred.
Yeah, I would say, this is my 16th year as sheriff. I know we started it pretty early in my career. I would guesstimate that probably between, probably 300 to 500 officers that have gone through that probably at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, officers are not immune to having mental issues too, especially PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yep.
With the kinds of things they encounter on a daily basis, I mean, they're bound to be affected.
Yeah, and we've had those issues, it's very delicate. It's a very delicate topic because, most of the public think of our deputies as big, strong heroes that don't let anything affect them, and that's just not true. We're just like any other person, except that we've chosen to put on a uniform and to take on the responsibility of making everybody else follow the rules. And sometimes that weighs on you. Sometimes these guys go on calls that they see things, for example, with a small child, and then they have a small child at home, and that overlaps each other. And, they see some pretty gruesome things with car accidents and homicide scenes and different things like that. We just had a case there with the drowning of the little kid in Adamsville. And, that looks and could weigh on different officers as they go through the summer and their kids are around swimming pools and different things like that. So, obviously weighs on them. We have things available for them. I don't force them into, debriefings, or I don't force them into talking to people because I wouldn't want that of me. I wouldn't want somebody forcing me to go talk. I feel that every person in the world handles things in their own way, and most of them are different in how they handle it. But we do make a lot of things available for them, and they don't even have to come to us to get that. And I just feel that voluntary thing, that they have the opportunity to go talk. Most officers will have that buddy, that friend, that partner, might be at work, might be away from work, that they'll go have a drink and talk to them about it, or they just go talk to them about it. And they can talk some of those feelings out. And then, of course, if we see somebody that it's affecting their job, obviously, then we'll address that with them and do different things that we can do. But it is a very stressful job. The families go through that stress as well. They feel every bit of it. And as I said, it makes it even that much more special when we're talking about things like that, about these young people that are choosing to come into this profession.
No. We've been talking about stereotypes, and there's a stereotype that the mentally ill are violent. What do you see?
I guess I wouldn't have the numbers to back that up. I guess I would say we've probably handled more mental health issues without issue than we have with. So in other words, we've probably taken more to the hospital to be evaluated. We've taken much more than we've had to fight with people, for example, or for them to be physically aggressive against us. We've handled the physically aggressive, obviously, but I think most folks that we get the call on, they've said something to someone or they've said something to us about their mental health, and that's usually the folks that want to talk to somebody and want help, and we try to get them to where they need to be, and get them back on track. And so I would say it's definitely been less violent that we've done versus the nonviolent versus the violent.
Well, I know the statistics nationally that I've seen say that someone with a mental illness is 10 times more likely to be a victim than a perpetrator. Mm-hmm. And 95% of violent crime is committed by people who are chronically normal. Right. Supposed to be. Right. So the statistics I've seen.
Yeah, that stereotype for us, I don't think that would be here as far as, we deal with a lot less aggressive folks than we do more aggressive.
I have a brother with schizophrenia, and I've had people say, aren't you afraid to go to sleep at night? Worried that he's going to come in and kill you in the middle of the night or something? Right. My brother, you couldn't find a nicer, more gentle human being on the planet. Right. And that just kills me that that's the perception that's out there. But
yeah, and I tell you, when you talk about that part of it, I would tell you that I'm in your corner, because with social media, the way it is today, there's so many more people that can sit behind a keyboard, and we call them keyboard warriors, and they can find any little tidbit wherever they want to find it, and they can type about it with no ramification, no consequence, and they put that stuff out there. And they don't have the gumption probably to say it to your face or to say it publicly, but they can sit behind that keyboard because they know there's no consequence to it. Right. And so not only do they say stuff about mental health, but they say that stuff about our country and the people in it. And so it's the best thing to do is I don't have Facebook. My wife does, and I don't read the blogs underneath articles, because I've come to the realization that 9.9 times out of 10, every decision I make, I'm probably going to make somebody unhappy, and they're going to have their own opinion, and they can put it out there, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah. Well, and everybody, I say everybody has their own reality. Yep. You say everybody has their own perspective, but it's like, whatever their perspective, that's their reality. Yep. No matter how much I might disagree with it or see it differently, you can't make people see.
And I think that's where you and I are talking, is when somebody is using drugs or having mental health issues, then their reality becomes clouded, and they get into a different type of reality when they do something different. And so all that plays a part of it.
Now, at least my perception is a growing concern in this area is the homelessness. And a lot of times those are people with mental illnesses and with addictions, not always, but sometimes just victims of circumstance. But it seems to be an increasing homeless population in this area. I don't know, is that what you're seeing? Or?
Yeah, I don't know that we see it as much as the Zanesville Police Department. A lot of that population is in the city limits, and I know, I know there's different things that I hear through the community about it. Don't really have a good answer for how to address that. We don't get a lot of complaints about that in the county. I know we had an quote unquote encampment down by 719, down by Putnam Transfer, that we had to kind of run out of there because of the private property, and the property owner wanted them off the property. So I think we had one down by the 719 bridge as well, on the south side of the bridge. But for the most part, I think a lot of that's kind of in the city limits, and I know it's just a tough thing to talk about, because those folks aren't really trying to do anything on purpose, I don't think, so it's just a tough place on where they're allowed to be and where's a good place for them to be so that they can get help for themselves.
Well, I've heard some of them say, well, where do you want us to go?
Correct.
And
that's
that's a good answer.
And that's what I hear all the time too.
Yeah. I wish we could say, here's the place, go there.
Right.
I don't think that exists.
Yeah. We've partnered with like the group Forever Dads. Burl down there has done a fantastic job with reentry, what we call reentry. And so we've worked with them as far as our jail, when folks are getting out of jail and going back into the community, trying to be productive citizens, and working with jobs and living place to live and vehicles and stuff like that. And so we try to take part in some of those different things where folks need assistance and trying to get reestablished. And so, but to my knowledge, there's nothing like that necessarily for that homeless population. And so it definitely makes it a tedious thing and something that we all, have to worry about.
You mentioned the city police. What's that relationship like between the sheriff's office and the city police?
Yeah, I probably have my best relationship ever with a police chief right now. Scott Comstock is the new police chief at the city of Zanesville.
He's involved in Forever Dads.
Yeah, involved with Forever Dads. He come up through the ranks with that department, and very good communication. Scott and I talk often, and especially if we have an issue, we both answer the phone pretty quickly or get back to each other pretty quickly. We still have a combined drug unit with the city and the county, so I think that's been very beneficial to sharing information and knowing what we're doing and working very closely with them. It's no secret, if you're a drug dealer in the city of Zanesville, your drugs are going out into the county, and if you're a drug dealer in the county, your drugs are going into the city. And they have no concept of jurisdictional lines or anything like that. So having that group working together, it's a phenomenal group that does phenomenal work. We belong to the Central Ohio Drug Task Force that is based out of Licking County, and it represents about 7 different counties. And so we have those resources to utilize here locally. But our relationship is, to me, it's, as far as me to the chief, is probably one of the best I've ever had in the 16 years I've been sheriff.
That's great.
Yep.
How much do you see human trafficking?
That's a great question, and that over the last 2-3 years has really come more to the surface as far as people talking about it. I don't know that we actually get those complaints that say human trafficking, so I can't print you off how many human trafficking cases we have, but it's here. And I think what you see it is with the prostitution and the drugs. I think you have people that are kind of influenced to do things because of the connections that they have, and I think they're taken advantage of, and they're used in a little bit different way compared to what you actually see on television. As far as people getting scooped up from our county and taken to the big city and trafficked, I don't know that we have those complaints or we've been able to prove those types of things, but we've had a few cases where some of that's we followed up on to find out what we've actually had, and then but I think for here it's more of an issue with people sometimes not having any other opportunity, and they have to go through with some of the things they're being made to do, and because they think that's the only way they can get through it. And so we definitely have it here. We've definitely gone to some of the different events for human trafficking, and we always try to make ourselves available and work with those groups to do anything else that we can in a positive way.
Yeah, because I would have, a few years ago, I would have thought it's not an issue here.
Right, right.
And I think a lot of people think it is, and maybe it's not a huge issue, but
right. It's always on the radar.
These things exist in any town.
Yeah.
And that leads me to something else I wanted to bring up was, just in casual conversation with people, I've heard people say, Zanesville is the worst area for drug abuse and addiction, and I'm guessing, I don't have any statistics, but I'm guessing we're like any other small community that probably, we didn't create these problems, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Right now, every state in the United States is a border state. And that's because the border is just flowing freely right now.
And they're going everywhere.
And it goes everywhere. And Paul, in 2000 or 2001, I'm not sure what day, it might have been 2002, I worked undercover narcotics in Zanesville for the sheriff's office. When Walmart, so you can go back and look it up, when Walmart on the Maysville Pike was being built, I pulled up in that parking lot while I was under construction, and I bought $1,600 of methamphetamine from an illegal alien from Mexico back in 2000, 2001, 2002. And so we've had, for the last 24 years, I know we've had a prevalent of it coming from Mexico and coming into this. The Dwight Taylor case, that cocaine was coming right from Mexico. We know that. We even took off a second case that came from Mexico. So those drugs are coming in here just like every state. Zanesville is no worse than any other community. One of the things we might be a little worse at is because we have I-70 goes right through our county, and it connects over to 77. So you have that corridor from Columbus to Cleveland, and we do see probably more things that regard. But I tell people all the time, we're very fortunate we live where we do. We have a lot of local support that supports law enforcement, both in the city and the county. We're an agricultural county. Our population is only 86,000 people, but we're the 5th largest in the state, square miles. Some people don't realize that. We're 680 square miles. That's 5th largest in the state, but it's mostly agricultural. And so we definitely see those issues that come down, and we definitely have our violence and our drug abuse and drug trafficking, but it's no worse than it is anyplace else. And I would challenge anybody that says that to show me the numbers, because we obviously have made a dent. If you go back and look at our cases, you look at what Ron Welch has done out of the prosecutor's office to prosecute these cases. You look at our judges and the amount of sentences in prison sentences that these drug dealers are getting. There's a message being sent there that if you come to this county and you're going to choose to do drugs and you're going to choose to trafficking drugs, you're going to pay the price if we catch you. It's a pretty good job as a drug dealer until you get caught. So I would just say that as far as the drugs itself goes, there's all kinds of communities seeing what we're seeing. It's just a matter of how much enforcement they're able to do. We've got great commissioners that give me the budget to be able to go out here and do the drug enforcement and spend that money and spend that time on it. And again, very fortunate we live where we do, that we don't see the lack of respect for law enforcement. We don't see the violence that some of these other places see. It's still a very good community. Even though we have the issues we have, it's still a very good community to live in.
And the courts are offering more alternatives. Like there's the Hope Court, and the Forever Dads, and so people are a lot of times getting sent for education and training. It's not all just lock them up. Yeah,
Judge Martin, who's now our probate court judge at JDC, he started a Hope Court clear back when he was county court judge several years back. Right. We even try to do something for veterans in the courts. And so having those judges that understand the issues, knowing our jail is like it is right now with limited space, we're always looking for other avenues to try to help folks, to give them an alternative to stay out. And again, as you said, they have to take those chances and make something good out of them. But there are definitely some alternatives there, and at least in my 35 years of law enforcement, I feel that the courts have really tried to help with some of those things.
And you mentioned military veterans. How much do you see issues with veterans who might be suffering from PTSD or other?
Yeah, again, I think, I don't know that it's any more than any other case we have.
Is that fairly common to get a call?
I would say, yeah, we get calls from different things that the person just happens to be a veteran. I don't want to say that we have a rash of it here. I don't know that we see it any more than any.
Bound to happen.
Yeah, but we do. We have some of our veterans that go through struggles just like everybody else, and we owe a lot to those veterans for having the ability of what we have today. And so anytime we talk to them, we try to respect our veterans and Again, we don't curb the law, but we always try to make sure they have whatever alternatives are available by the courts. We do have our share of them, but I don't think there's anything overly abundant, and that's probably because we have great resources for the veterans. We have all of our VFW, different buildings and different groups and different organizations that have places for those guys to go and gals to go, so obviously we take those cases as they come, but I don't think we have an overabundance of that. No.
Well, had I not sat in on some of the CIT training, I wouldn't have known. But when you understand that these people, these military veterans, have been in battle, have seen people die.
Correct.
They first of all are certainly justified, I guess use that word, and having PTSD and getting, I'm sure, easily triggered, and they've already been out there on the front lines, and seeing an officer of the law, they're not probably intimidated by that, is my understanding, because they've seen that and worse.
Yeah, and again, it comes right back to the struggle that you're going through, and different people are going to be affected in different ways. And so, as I said, we have to look at that, and that's what the crisis intervention has done to help with is trying to identify what that person is going through and why, and then trying to get them down the right avenue to get their help. But yeah, you're right. I mean, sometimes sometimes the uniform can trigger different things with different people, and depending on what they've been through in their life and when some of the stuff that they've gone through. It can affect different people different ways.
Now, you mentioned the new jail.
Yeah.
So you and I talked about it off camera, but give us an update on that situation.
Yeah. So the new jail, we are the design has been approved by the state of Ohio. We're waiting on the formal letter. The design's been approved. The location was a very sticky topic. I'll say, in Zanesville. We have received a court order saying that we can put the jail over at the old mosaic tile location at corner of Pershing and Dryden by the fairgrounds. We are doing some more finalized samples of what can be done over there to make sure that everything's on the same page. The commissioner are currently talking with Granger, the company called Granger, who basically is a construction manager at risk. They take kind of over the burden of the project. So you basically hire them to hire all the other stuff going on. And so that hasn't been signed, so that it's not definitely a done deal yet. There has to be some discussion about that. We have another meeting next week about that. But, we fully understand that there was going to be some negative feedback. Nobody... and I learned this back in 2015. We tried to put a property tax on, and it went down in defeat. Not by very much, but it went down. And some of the things we heard right there were, why would I vote for that? I'm never going to use it. And then why are we building something new for an inmate, for a prisoner? And so, it's not about the newness of building something. It's about building something that we can put people that need to be off the street. B, for that inmate's safety when he's locked up with other inmates, and C, for the corrections officer itself, is to keep them safe. And right now our jail, we just got reevaluated. We can hold 180 prisoners. We're routinely at 185 to 200, and we're trying to build something for the future. The jail we're currently in was built as an office building. Some people don't understand that. It was built back in 1975. And it was built as an office building with a jail on the 4th floor to hold about 50 prisoners. And from 95, 96 on, they kind of started renovating it and making it a 4-floor jail. And so now to take a prisoner from the 4th floor and take them down to the booking, a corrections officer has to get on the elevator, go up, get the inmate out, take the inmate back down the elevator, and go to booking. With a new jail, a person behind a secured wall can say, inmate Lutz, you're going to booking. They can buzz a door, let that person walk out by themselves. The door closes. They can walk down the hallway to the booking. The door opens, they walk in, and then the booking officer has them. So you're moving prisoners with cameras and doors. So we can hold a lot more prisoners with the same amount of staff we have now.
Okay.
And plus it's a safer environment because you're not hands-on with that inmate. And so, we understand that there's nobody wants it in their backyard, as the signs said. And we would have negative feedback no matter where we chose to put it. But the land bank that exists in Muscatine County with Muscatine County and Zanesville City took that into their possession. They had it all torn down, and it has electric, gas, all the water. It has all the amenities there, and it was big enough to put this place, to put the jail, and it was just the best location. And so that's why the commissioners asked to put it there, and that's why we had to have the court rule that it was legitimately there or can be put there. So we're hoping that we can get it done. The issue right now is that this started back in 2015, and even in the October of 23, because we were delayed clear till now, the inflation has really gone up. So this thing is even more expensive than what the commissioners thought it was going to be. And so they don't want to pass a tax. They don't want to have to put this burden back on the taxpayers. They're trying to do it by themselves out of the general fund. And we haven't been able to get any kind of help from the state on the grant. And so we're still considering it, and we're hoping we get to build it.
Well, you alluded to, but I think we should expound a little bit on the corrections officers, the people who work there. The current environment's not really safe or... Yeah, we have one floor, a third floor, we have one corrections officer up there between 50 and 60 inmates, and with really nothing in between them. Now those are our lower misdemeanor cases, our nonviolent cases, but still, if an inmate got mad, they could just go after the deputy or two or three of them. And we did have one escape because of a kind of a design flaw, but we did have a deputy jumped by 3 inmates, and they was able to get his key and get out one of the doors. And we were able to get him back, but this new facility, they wouldn't have the ability to do that. And so the other thing about this facility is too, we're building what we call a pod or a dorm that is going to have cells in it, but it's going to be down by the booking area where we don't have that now. We only have the 4 holding cells. We'll have a lot more holding cells, but we'll also have a dorm where we can keep people with mental health issues and addiction health issues that our people will be able to check on more. It'll be closer to the nurses, and so we feel it's going to be more appropriate. Again, my jail is probably the largest in-house rehab center right now in Muscatine County for addiction and for mental health. And so if we have to take those folks, we're going to try to put them in a place where at least we can get more services to them and make it a better place for them to be while they're carrying out their sentence. Yeah, some years ago when we closed all the state mental hospitals, a lot of those people have ended up now in the jails and prisons.
And it takes me 3 hours now to go down to Athens when the hospital calls and says they have an admission for Athens State Hospital. It takes one of our guys 3 hours to drive down there, get them in there, and get back. And the hospital can only hold them for 72 hours, and they have to make a decision. And a lot of times they're not bad enough to go to the state hospital, but they can't stay at the hospital, and so they end up with charges back with us. And so again, that makes me the largest in-house provider. And so we're trying to come up with different ways, again, for our staff as well, because our staff isn't trained on how to intercede with these guys, and so making it better for those outpatient services in our county to come in and provide treatment, and also our nurses to be able to provide, and also making it safer for those folks while they're incarcerated.
I think a final question for you. If I have a loved one in my family that has a serious mental illness, would you advise me to contact your officer of the Zanesville Police and let them know that I have somebody in my family, in my household with serious mental illness? Because if they get a call, it's helpful for officers to know there's somebody there with a mental illness that could be the underlying factor for this call, or is that not necessary or not helpful?
Paul, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's one of the really great things that we have now with computers. We have the same software technology that we run our dispatch center all the way down through our records and our evidence and our investigations. We have what we call an address advisory. Okay, so we can go into any address in the county or city, and we can put an address advisory in there. We do it for vicious dogs. So like if my guys are going out to serve a court paper, that'll pop up and say aggressive dog at this address.
Good to know.
Okay, we can do this for mental health. We can do it for addiction services. We can do it for a veteran. We can do this for anything that is different at that house out of the normal. And therefore, when Paul calls in, and I live at 1234 Main Street, and I need a deputy, okay, for whatever reason, when my deputy's going to that house, that dispatcher is going to say, we got an address advisory. This subject's been violent with law enforcement in the past, or this person has mental health issue and has been taken to the hospital in the past. So we have that record of that call. So anybody can do that. I go. We had a meeting. I met with the hearing impaired, and talking about different things that we could do for the community. We can put that into an address advisory. So when my deputy's going, they know right off the bat they're going to be talking to somebody that's hearing impaired, and we have a little card that we have some communication with to do that. So the address advisory thing is really good. It doesn't take hardly anything to put in there. All it takes is that person calling into the office and saying, hey, I would like to add this to our address advisory in case the fire department, the squad, or law enforcement's ever called to our house.
Well, I think a lot of times people are reluctant to call, even if they have a family member with a serious mental illness and maybe they're having symptoms. They're reluctant to call because they don't want them to get arrested.
Right.
But they do want the situation to be changed, and they do want you to be advised that this person may not act like a normal person.
Anything that we can give our deputies before they get to a scene, the better. And to help them be prepared for what's going on. And like I said, a lot of those calls, when we get out of the car, we really don't have any idea what's going on because we weren't there. And that's why domestic violence cases are the hardest cases for us to investigate, because a lot of times you got one person and one person, and they're saying totally different things, and you're in the middle trying to figure out what the evidence tells you. And so anything that we can get for our people to make them more prepared before they arrive on the scene, the better. And so I encourage people to take advantage of that if they have an issue like you're talking about and they want to call in and make sure that we have an address advisory for it.
Great.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate all that you do for the community, and as we've acknowledged, it's become an increasingly difficult job that you and all your officers have, and you've always been very supportive of NAMI locally, and I think you've been a great service to the community.
Yeah, well, your parents were really good people to be around, and when I had the opportunity to be around them, and always good seeing them. It's always good seeing you. Appreciate getting a chance to come on here, and in the future, if there's ever a certain topic that you want to talk about again, I enjoy coming on, and I'd be more than happy to come back on.
I'm sure we'll do that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us on the Recovery Rocks podcast with Paul Quinn. I hope you'll join us again next week.
Hey guys, good to see you again. Table over here for you. Hi, I'm Jim, owner of the barn on Linden Avenue, Zanesville. It's football season, so if you're rooting for your favorite pro, college, or local teams, my team has made the barn your destination for sports, dining, and entertainment pleasure since 1970. Watch the games on our big screen TVs, choose from one of the area's best menus, enjoy our local daily entertainment, and come down and check out our expanded patio.
The barn is the place everybody knows and where everybody goes.